Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read unload fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion fic by Aeolian Sands from an archive of our own called The Rescue Party. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Rescue Party, Chapter 14. It's Raining Elves. Granthir found his mother aggressively carving a large stump with a knife. This was not good. Amille, he said slowly, approaching her like one would a wounded animal. I'm fine, Carnistir. It's just... She grunted as she worked the knife through a difficult turn. A lot has happened in the past few weeks, and I'm not pious Erwin or holy Manwe. Granthir sat down on a nearby boulder. That makes two of us, then. Nerdanel dropped her knife and turned to look at her child. Her face softening, she came and sat beside him, embracing him in a hug and kissing his brow. Granthir saw grief in her grey eyes as she pulled away. There's no pain like a mother losing a child. You are my babies. All of you. All I ever wished is for us to be one happy family. We all wished for that. It is the wish of every parent, he replied, and he saw in his mind's eye Haleth with her wild hair and untamable spirit laughing in the sunshine. A child was laughing at her side. Your father was part of that dream too. How did he get back? Did Mundos release him? No, he and Nolofinwe broke out of the halls. Oh no, he hadn't expected any less from his father, but Nolofinwe? High King of the Noldor? Breaking out? Amille, it sounded like you said broke out. They did. Apparently they fell from the sky too. Granthir nodded. Well, don't worry about Pitio. He's sure to follow suit soon enough. That won a small laugh from his mother. You're right. If the dam has burst, it will be only a matter of time before that rascal comes here with your cousins in tow. It'll save us all if the rumors of Iris's death are true. She'll be leading them with a pitchfork. Nerdanel did laugh then, and she hugged her son once more. You've grown, Moria. Truly you have. It is good to remember that the dead are not forever sundered from us. Let's just hope Iris is still among us, and has no need of pitchforks. Granthir swallowed. Yes, most of the dead are not fully sundered from us. He stood up and went to his horse. We should get back to Father and Aunt Erwin. Father's sins aside, this land is not safe. And if Fëanor is to walk in Arda again, I would rather it be where I can see him. Nope, Fëanor was most definitely going to go wandering about unsupervised. Nathaniel nodded. So you haven't forgiven him? No. We loved him more than life, and through his folly, he brought doom upon us. Did you know he made us swear twice? But it still does not matter if I can forgive or if I cannot. We are at war, Amille. In war, the enemy of your enemy is always your friend. Alliances are worth their weight in mithril. Nerdanel did not say anything for several moments. Then she stood and put a gentle hand on Garanthir's shoulder. It pains me that you have grown so cold. Makalauda will probably forgive him. Kurva certainly. Tilko likely will as well. His mother looked up in the distance then. My fury was great and righteous when he left. However, in time, I found myself dreaming of him again. And when he returned, it was so easy to imagine that nothing had ever happened. I loved your father. Just recognize that he may not be the same Elon any longer, Granthir warned, leaping onto his horse and reaching down to help his mother up. Erwan was sleeping slightly when he heard hoofbeats approaching. Thinking it was Granthir and Nerdanel returning, she sat up to greet them, only to see that the rider on the black horse was silver-haired. The elf leapt up gracefully and Erwan had to admit that he was perhaps the fairest being she had ever seen. His golden eyes were bright, as if with tree light, but Erwan couldn't remember ever meeting this particular elf before. She would have remembered. "Well met," she greeted kindly. "Well met, Lady Erwan. I am Meletiar. I was sent by the Vala to help guide you and your friends through this dark land." "My lord," she said, bowing her head politely, immediately recognizing the spirit before her as a Meyer. "No need for titles," the fair being laughed. "Meletiar will do well enough. I was a servant of Aule once." Erwan smiled sweetly, feeling a bit like something was off. "It's all right. Ulmo helped us, so of course Aule can as well. My brother by marriage, and you will get along splendidly. He fell asleep telling me all about a possible ore deposit, talking about skarns and carbonates and magma." "Oh," Melatiar asked, "a skarn deposit? There aren't any that I know of around here. Maybe to the north. There are some limestone beds." Erwan clicked her tongue in disapproval. "You are certainly one of ours, without a shadow of a doubt. But spare me kindly, and wait till my law brother awakes to tell about ores and metals and smithcraft." "Of course," he nodded. "I have been traveling far to reach you. While my kind don't need sleep, a bit of rest does sound nice." "Please," Erwan nodded. "I'm afraid this is a bit of an impromptu camp, but make yourself comfortable." As the sun set ahead behind the distant Eret Vithrin, Madros felt increasingly worried. At first Maklar was keeping up fine, walking or at times cantering alongside him or just behind. But now his brother appeared pale, and sweat was glistening on his forehead despite the chill of the night. Nanda stumbled then, a movement that Maklar should never have even blinked at, but he fell forward over the horse's neck. Madros reined Tarakas in immediately. "Bakalaure!" He shouted his brother's name, reaching out to grab him by the shoulder. But his brother did not stir. Madras swore. "Kano! Kano!" He called his name twice again, but once more the singer did not respond or even lift his head. "Stupid, stupid!" Madras chided himself. "I was a fool for not bringing a healer." He leapt off his horse and pulled Maklar down from the saddle, falling to sit on the grass with his brother in his lap. Feeling Kano's forehead, there could be no doubt that he was burning with fever. Madras tore at the clothing and bandages around the wound Maklar had sustained when he decided to be a moron and gallop into an orc camp. The wound was closed, thanks likely to Maklar having the strength to finish the healing song with him, but white streaks radiated from it, and it was hot to the touch. Poison. The black-blooded slime had poisoned his little brother. Madras understood Fingolfin's charge in that moment more than any other. "Kano, Kano, hang on. Hang on, brother," he whispered. He reached for his brother's neck and felt for a pulse. "Please, please, Mandos, don't take him yet." The heartbeat was faint and slow, but it was there. Madras nearly collapsed in relief. Yet Maklar needed help. He needed a healer as soon as possible. "Manwe, Varda, Ulmo, Yavanna, any of you, Holy Vala. I don't deserve it, but please do not let my brother die. You saved me once, and I am the least of them." Yet he was not Fingon. He was a kinslayer. No eagle came flying to the rescue. Maklar groaned in his arms and muttered something indecipherable. In despair, Madras looked up at the two horses. Nanda was faster, but she did not have the strength for two riders. "Tarakas!" he shouted. "Right now! Maklar will never make it to Telvo in time. We must head directly west to Doriath." It didn't matter if they were banned from the Grey Cloak's realm. His brother was dying, and Thingol's people were the only ones close enough to save him. With some effort, He managed to hoist Makalauda into the saddle with one hand and then to sit behind him. Madros wrapped his right arm around his brother's chest and urged his horse to gallop as if the hordes of the Dark Lord were at their heels. Ulm had just crossed the Daiklin with Gilgalad in tow when he heard the prayer of Madros. For the love of... he cursed, but then stopped because the padded hell was looking at him in bewilderment. It's nothing to worry about, Hallgeir. The son of Halath just stared at him with even more suspicion. Are you okay, Arthur? Ulma huffed. I am perfectly all right. Seems as if everyone else is a few oars short of a rowboat. Apparently, Makalaure, son of Fëanor, was dying. There wasn't anything Ulma could do for him aside from turning into a flying creature and racing to the east. However, that degree of intervention outside his own domain would be difficult to explain to Manwe, never mind trying to explain it to Gil-galad. The young half-elf was by nature slow to trust, and turning into a giant bird was probably not going to help that situation. Especially because he doubted the Beradhel had received much education about the Ainur from his people. The Haladin were a far cry from the great house they once were under Lady Haleth. It sounds like something is bothering you. It's called your insufferable family. Well, maybe something is, but sometimes you are unable to solve every problem. You simply have to do the best you can and learn to live with it. Come now, we still have a few more days before we reach the Falas. He knew the young one was tired and likely needed to sleep, but the half-elf was far too wary of him to suggest it himself. That was fine. Ulma needed to just get him to Círdan, preferably as soon as possible. Night had fallen now, and still Maedhros urged his great warhorse at an unrelenting gallop across the northern plains. They were wildfire racing through the night, leaping over ditches and pits in the ground without hesitation. Somewhere a wild cat cried in the distance, and Maedhros stole a look at the rising moon and stars. Yet they were as distant from him now as they had been all those years ago when he had hung in despair. Are you sure this is the way? Nedanel asked her son. We should have been back by now. I know, Galanthir replied. He sounded tense. The forest trees loomed above them in the darkness, their leaves blocking out the light of stars. Strange shadows played across the ground. Nedanel thought she heard snarling then. Whipping her head around, she gazed into the night, but she could see nothing. Galanthir's horse shifted beneath them. Whoa, boy, whoa! Her son patted the startled creature's neck. Nedanel's hackles raised. Why was it so dark? Then she saw them, glowing in the trees. A pair of red eyes. Something's there, she shouted. Immediately, Nedanel's only thought was for the safety of her child. Leaping off the horse, she brandished her great sword. The ringing of metal started the horse, and it reared. Mother! Galanthir called. Get down, Moria, she ordered. There's something out there. Nothing we have hope of fighting in the dark! Her son's eyes gleamed with tree light from his seat on the horse that was tossing its head and prancing. A howl followed, and Nedanel turned. A grey wolf jumped at her from beyond the trees. Nedanel ground her teeth and moved, aiming her blade up at the belly of the creature and spearing it before it could latch onto her throat. Good. She would defend her son. This was why she and her sisters by marriage had trained for so many hours. She flung the body off her blade and brought it around to a ready stance. The red eyes around her multiplied. Galanthir shouted loudly and kicked his horse. Nedanel whirled to see them charge forward before her son directed his mount to turn in a swift arc and make directly for her. What was he thinking? At once, arms were around her and she felt herself being hoisted back onto the stallion. Her naked blade fell to the ground as it caught in a passing tree and was wrenched from her grasp. Moria! Those are werewolves, Amile! Galanthir yelled. A great cacophony of barking and howling ensued. The horse answered in a fearful neigh, shrill in the night, and wrenched its head back. It seemed to have gotten the bit in its teeth because at once they were galloping in seemingly reckless abandon, howling and snapping of teeth behind them. Branches slapped at their faces and caught in their long hair, threatening to throw them both to the ground. "Hold on to me!" Galantir ordered. Nederland did not need to be told that. Soon, the sounds of rush water met their ears. They must be nearing the river once more. The daughter of Matan looked behind her to see a slim wolf right behind them. She grinned feral and waited for it to get just a few feet closer. And then she slammed it in the head with her boot. It whimpered and fell. "That's right, foul beast! Where's your mother? I would like to have few words with her!" Another charging wolf leapt behind them, attempting to claw into Nerdanel's exposed back. Yet she flung her carving knife straight into its chest. "And yours!" she hissed. "Amille, I don't know if werewolves have mothers. They are created and twisted spirits. Thanks for that information, Mario. Very helpful." Then she reached forward and drew her son's sword from its sheath. 2 wolves were nipping at the horse's hooves. Her first attempt to slam the blade into the head of one failed, but it was enough to distract the werewolf and make it fall back. Her second jab to its companion did not miss. Unfortunately, when its body fell, the sword fell with it. "Amille, stop losing our weaponry! Your Attar can just make more! It's about the only thing he's good for, the royal piece of orc shit!" Galantir knew that before Formenos, Nerdanel had been actively working on not cursing as much. It seemed as if the old Amille was back in full fury. And for some unknown reason, he smiled. "Well, Iron Hells, get down!" he yelled. His mother looked about ready to stand on the horse's back and take a flying leap into the pack behind them to fight them with nails and teeth. "The river is up ahead and there are rapids here!" He really shouldn't have had to say it. The city on here had widened into streams of its delta to a proper river. White water churned across rocks and the roar was deafening. The horse showed no desire to stop. "Why are you heading straight at it?" Nerdanel yelled. At least she was sitting now. "I'm not! Nordaroko has the bit in his teeth!" Nordaroko must have been spooked out of his wits. The terrified animal leaped, as if it intended to jump over the mighty Sirion in one stride. Horse and riders landed hard in the middle of the furious waters, and Galantir was immediately pulled under by the current. He knew better than to fight it. Instead, he held his breath and tensed with his arms held at his head. His body flipped in the rapids, and rocks impacted with his arms and back. Thrashing to the surface, he took a deep breath. There was no sign of the horse. There was no sign of his mother. "Amille!" he shouted. Then something hit him in the back. Forced under again for a moment, he felt a hand holding his wrist. Relief flooded his heart. On his next breath, an Eleth with red hair surfaced next to him. "You okay, Mario?" she asked. That was yet to be determined. "Maybe. Amille, just keep holding on to me. We have to stay together." "That doesn't look good." Galantir turned to see that the river appeared to end. His eyes widened. "It's a waterfall." There was no time to make it to the banks. His mother smiled then, her eyes sparkling in the dark. "Who do you think can have the best dive?" "Mother, I don't think you understand." But Nerdanel had let go of his hand and was swimming towards the edge. Oh, for crying out loud. Finarfin was having trouble sleeping. His brother and wife lay in each other's arms on the other side of the campfire, which was sweet and all, but it made him miss Erwan. They had made camp at the base of a tall waterfall. It was beautiful here. Not as beautiful as Tirion or elsewhere in Eldamar, but it had its own appeal. You could do without the loud barking that sounded like a pack of hounds escaped from the kennels. Was that shouting he heard? He stood then and looked at the waterfall when suddenly he saw, in the moonlight, an elf with the hair color of fire dive headfirst over the waterfall. It was a flawless dive, and would have earned the perfect score had it been at the pools just west of Tirion, where he and his brothers used to play. Then there was shouting, and someone with dark hair and pale complexion tumbled over the edge. It was just barely better than Fingolfin's infamous flop from so many centuries ago. The massive splash when the floating body hit the surface of the pool was impressive, however. Finarfin walked to the edge and was relieved to see two figures swimming towards him. Although he was getting really tired of fishing family members from random bodies of water, maybe he should just avoid all rivers, oceans, and lakes from this point on. Adolphina, you lost your glow, Ned commented, and she treaded water towards him. There was something sparkling in her eyes that concerned the King of Noldor in Amon very much. It's been lost, I assume? Yes, but I just now thought about it. He must have disappeared in Ekgaya. Finarfin was only half listening. Instead, he was intently scanning the horizon, waiting for Fëanor to descend in a literal fireball and for his wife. May she be okay? Most likely, Adwan was okay. Of course she was okay. She would jump off with the elegance of a swan and perform a dive with 3 flips and come up smiling. His nephew flopped onto the bank like a wet and unhappy cat. Don't worry, Uncle. They're not with us. What is happening over here? Finarfin turned to see Fingolfin step into view, face in a kingly scowl. We got separated from Adwan and Fëanor, Garantira explained from where he lay. Finarfin could just make out a new bruise forming on his cheek. Fingolfin put his fingertips to his temple and massaged his head. Why? Fingolfin asked. Because he's a terrible father and should have been near my children. Did you know what happened to Pitio? Oh no, Finarfin thought, because, yes, Fëanor had mentioned something about the fate of his nephew. Fingolfin looked pale. Yes, Nerdanel, and I would have killed him for it had he not already been dead, the former king in Beleriand answered. Well, you're a second in line now! Garantira stood on shaky legs and went to his mother. Amile, he's not worth of your energy right now. Save it for the werewolves and the orcs. Later. Nerdanel shook his hand off her shoulder. Fine. You don't need to give me your allies speech again. Fingolfin sighed. The embers of our fire are still warm. Come get warm and tell us exactly what happened. Then let's all get some much-needed rest before going to hunt down my brother. Again. End of chapter 14. Stay tuned.